Okay, the law of cosines using side, side, side. When we don't know any angles in a triangle, you have to use the law of cosines on there. And so how we're going to do that here again, another example here that I just kind of put up. We did previously the side angle, side one. So this angle we should get should be pretty close to 103 degrees because this side was 19.81. Now we're just going to do it 20. So they'll be a little bit bigger than 103 degrees when we get done here. So same type of thing. We want to say, well, we want to look for actually any angle on here. It doesn't matter which one. You can choose any angle you want to. I'm just going to do this top one just because we have kind of an estimate on there. But again, the idea on here, let me pull up my drawing tool. So on here, again, the side has to be opposite the angle that we're looking for. So you can choose any side you want to. I'm going to pick that we're going to look for 20, and that is opposite the angle right here, which I'm going to call angle capital C on there. So when we go into work here, that's what we want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and pop in here. I'm going to start putting down the equation on this one. So in this one here, it says c squared. That's a lowercase c. That's side c. So that's 20 squared, which happens to be 400, equals all those pieces put together. So here we do a squared plus b squared. So 10 squared plus 15 squared. So that's 100 plus 225 because that's 15 squared minus 2 times 10 times 15. Multiply that out. Again, that's still 300. And then times the cosine of c, which we don't know what c is, so we just leave that there as a variable. And as we work through this stuff, I'm just going to erase some of these lines here because we don't necessarily need those. And we can work through here, not too bad. We can add these two together and then we'll eventually subtract them. So in here we'd have, let's put our equation back up. We got 400 equals, putting those two things together, we got 325 minus 300 cosine, fancy, cosine of c. And here, most people do just fine, but there is one mistake that often happens, and I don't want you guys to make this mistake. So I'm going to put this next one here, knowing full well that this is a mistake. So I'm going to put this down. What a lot of people do is they will make this mistake. Is they'll say, okay, we got our 400 equals, well, I know 325 minus 300 is 25. And so they'll put that right there. And then they'll put cosine of c. They'll divide by 25. And then they'll go to try to use their calculator. And if we do this divide by 25, 400 divided by 25 is 16. Cosine c, and then they go to try to use their calculator because we should do the cosine inverse. So that's what they try and do here. So we say c is equal to the cosine inverse. We put a little -1 with that of 16. And then they'd say, okay, we got to jump to a calculator. I'd go here. I still got my same examples up from before. But here, you can go into your functions. Here's that our cosine of 16 on there. Put that in and hit enter, and it will say, no way, that's undefined, because again, this is bigger than 1, so a mistake got made. If you get an undefined answer when using the law of cosines, you did something wrong. The law of cosines will always work, right? As long as the triangle is a physical makeable triangle. We talked about in the law of sines, sometimes you get something that doesn't work. It means it's not a physical triangle. So here, if you have 3 sides of a triangle, you have to be able to solve the law of cosines. So the correct way, so let's do this the correct way. The reason that doesn't work is that there's some multiplying happening here. So we have to make sure to subtract this part first, then divide, then do the cosine inverse. So that's what we need to make sure of. So in the correct version of this, here I'm just going to go in. We would take this, subtract the 325 away. That would make that 75. And then we would divide by -300. And in this one here, I'm not going to reduce that down. You guys can if you really want to, but here we would have our -75 over 300. Again, it doesn't matter where you put a negative in the fraction. And then we would do the cosine inverse, right? So in here, cosine inverse of -75 over 100. Actually, I'm just going to type in arc cosine. I think that still works as well. Easier to type rather than putting those in. And then we would put our negative 75 over 300. And we get that that's 104.48 degrees when we round that. And that's what we would say here. So C is equal to 104.48 degrees. So this is the correct way. Don't make this mistake of accidentally combining those two beforehand. But that's how you do. That's how you create this when you have side angle side. And if you wanted to find other angles, you could reset this up. Just exchanging. Maybe you put 10 squared across from something. Or now that you have an angle and a side across from it, you can actually just use the law of sines if you want to. Sometimes that's a little bit easier to set up, so you can use the law of sines there also.